Do we have the electronic connections working?
Yes.
Good. Shall we start with the pledge of allegiance to the flag?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, if we could go around and identify ourselves, starting with you, Ross.
I'm Ross Graham. I'll vouch for her. I'm Judy Farrar, citizen and neighbor.
Thank you, Judy.
Cora Safarati, citizen.
I'm Mr. Sephardi, her husband, and I'm her husband.
Yeah. Too bad.
Carolyn Shrego, citizen.
Okay.
Jeff Rosner, Lynchburg Democratic Committee, authorized representative and voter protection liaison.
Thank you. And at the end,
Daniel Pence, Registrar in Lynchburg.
Nancy Davis, Deputy Registrar. Ed Gibbs, Secretary of the Electoral Board.
David Levy, Chairman of the Electoral Board.
Steve Troxel, Vice Chair of the Electoral Board.
Okay. The next order of agenda is to review the agenda. We have published a new agenda, and there are additional items on the agenda.
Right, where's the new?
You know what? I put the new one on the website, but I probably, looks like I printed the old one, so my apologies for the one the one that's on the screen is.
Oh, that's the real one.
That's the update. Sorry, I printed
That's the new one.
You can photos fast one, you switch it out in the middle of the day.
We basically remember to put the ratification. They have to.
Oh,
Does yours look like that? No.
this one is,
We're missing B.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Let's
that's
see.
the old one.
Oh, okay, gotcha. We can write that.
I think I wrote my own new one. Okay, yeah, I brought my own.
I have the old one.
Yeah, I apologize. You switch it in the middle of the day and I didn't get into it perfect. Sorry, my apologies.
Okay, so I don't think we need a motion to amend the agenda, but I am pointing out that we are proceeding along the new agenda. Now, that's item A. Item B, we have the minutes of May 2nd, 2024. Those have been published. Are there any changes to the minutes, or can I have a motion to approve?
If these are what, if there's been no changes since, okay, then I move that we adopt or whatever we have to do to the May 2nd meeting minutes.
I second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have announcements. We'll be meeting on July 25th rather than the first Thursday of August. So I believe that's what's happening. Is that correct, Dan?
Yeah, so either you can parse it whichever way you like, either no meeting in July and July 25th substitute for 1st of August, or other way around. But no, not two meetings between July and August, just one meeting.
Shall we move on into the registrar's report, please? Mr. Pence?
Sure, give me 1 second, I will get this minimized. Maybe I can do it down here. 1 second. Mouse. Let's go to here, actually to here. Oh, that's better. So just as a quick note, as we get started on this, the registrar's report is up on the website. So I know some people have said it's a little hard to see on the screen sometimes. If you happen to have a tablet or a phone that's easier for you to look at, you can certainly go to the version on the website. It's a PDF version, and you can look at that if that's more convenient for you. Okay, registrar's report for this meeting. We're going to go over some statistical reports, budgetary reports, and ongoing projects, as well as some announcements and recommendations that I might have. The statistical reports will be only for the month of May, because we're not through the month of June yet. And we will catch up as we get through the summer with the following months. Okay. Sorry. Registering counts by locality. This is right off of Veris, and it is as of 5/31/2024. And these are our counts of active voters, inactive voters, and a tally of all voters. Of course, as always, we have military, overseas, and federal on the right-hand side, just to break those out as separate categories. As you can see, we have 56,930 voters at this point in time, as of the 31st in the city of Lynchburg. And of those, 6,418 are inactive. Just as a side note on this report, the elect just did trigger their NCOA process at the beginning of June. So that means they have everyone who's marked as undeliverable, or they find on the NCOA report. They've sent confirmation mailings to, and if those are not responded to within 30 days, and the voters who've received those will be marked as inactive. Okay, you got that? I can run it again if you need to. Locality statistics. This is just a kind of a compilation of another report about locality statistics. Essentially, this is by precinct. It tells you on the left-hand side where we were at the beginning of the month and where we are at the end of the month. You'll see the net change in the second to last column. It just gives you an idea of kind of where we're moving. Just as a reminder, which you'll see in the next report as well, we hold new voter registrations as of the middle of this month. We get through the end of the election, and then of course we'll see a bit of a bump up, a bulge in changes after the election showing up in this month's report. I think just as a note, we continue to see consistent kind of uptick in 401 and 404. And because those are precincts that already have a high number of voters, after this latest elect NCOA mail-out and adjustment, we'll need to look again to see if this brings our active voters down below that 5,000 level. But even if it does, it's not likely to bring it down by very much. So we as a Registrar Electoral Board should look at precinct 401 for for maybe moving the line or somehow adjusting that so we don't have so many voters in 401. But just for something to take under advisement as we go forward. The Statistical Registration Report, the NVRA, National Voter Registration Act. For May, you can see we had, as always, most of our registrations coming in from the DMV, although like I mentioned before, it's a slight downtick because we are only registering through part of the month this month, and that will bump up again next month when we get past the blackout period. Any questions on these statistical reports so far? Go back if you missed something.
These are basically just entries, regardless of what they are. Address change is not, it's not particularly DMV, it's not particularly new voters. It's just some kind of activity involving it.
Right. So Nancy, since you process a lot of these, you can share your thoughts about what the split of the divide is.
Most of them are going to be the DMVs because we get a lot of them beginning like early in the year. They'll trickle in, but state also sends us some in the mail. So you'll see some of those come in like for the national forum, from the discretionary agencies and stuff like that. We get very little of those, but mostly you'll see more for the state mailing forms and the DMV.
So in the DMV, just, I don't know if maybe if you can estimate this. Do you think a lot of that is updates to addresses? Or is voters already registered and they're just updating their address? Or do you think there's a lot of new, just an estimate of a split there?
I want to say it's more updating of the addresses, and then it's, some are newly coming in. So probably like about 80% are updating their addresses and 20% are coming in. But other than that, you'll see some just changing in and out from our city. They'll be like, okay, I'm gonna live here, and then next year jump over to Campbell County. It just depends on, you know, when they find out how much they're gonna be paying in taxes. Usually. So,
But again, it's not numbers added, it's just interactions with our system.
yeah,
Right, so probably, if I understand what Nancy's saying, probably 80% are updates to an existing registration, and
Right.
whatever, maybe 20 is new. I think that's consistent with what we're seeing with these numbers. If we really were seeing, you know, a ton of new registrations, you would probably see in the right-hand column here, next to the most right, but much bigger numbers.
and you also have to take into account that the city is building more subdivisions and properties. So that really is another big thing that we're having to deal with. So like with 401, they're getting more properties going into their division, so
Yeah, and we get updated addresses,
constantly.
yeah, pretty regularly. And that, of course, that doesn't always mean that we have a voter at those locations, or not yet, but it's something that we have to kind of keep a track of for the street files.
So to entertain in the weeds question. On the.
Let me go back, sorry.
Where you're talking about the DMV report. It
Yeah.
has DMV and it has a lot of other things where the changes come from. There's one that says voter cards. That is a holdover. It has, Alexa said anything about changing this form to take that away. It kind of doesn't exist anymore unless the letter that's sent out says you could send it back and get your address changed.
I don't know, well, we did have 2 people come in, well, send their voter cards in with a change of address on the back.
Some of those, okay.
They're still doing some of those, and I know with more likely Appomattox, they're still doing them also.
Right. Just to know if
Yeah.
they've gone away yet.
Yeah, there may be some jurisdictions that you might still see some of those, but
Yeah,
we're all zeros, as you can see, and I'm sure we've been all zeros for a while.
yeah, probably about 2.
Okay. Moving on.
Yep. So here's our budget. Again, apologies if the numbers are a little small, trying to get all this information into the presentation. So if you look on the right-hand column, I guess, try to summarize this. You'll see a percentage, which gives you a sense of where we are for each one of these categories, each one of the GL codes for this point in the fiscal year. Now, you got to remember, we're talking about the fiscal year, right? So this is as of the end of May, and the fiscal year that runs from July 1st to June 30th. So essentially, we are 11 months in. So the numbers that we have here kind of should be, getting close to 100%. In some cases, over 100%, in some cases, a bit under 100%. But the number that the city's going to care about, and we can go back and ask specific questions if you like about specific things, but just to talk about the high level, the number that the city's going to care about is the number all the way down at the bottom here on the right. I know, apologies again, it's a little small, but we are about at 98% of our overall budget for fiscal year 2024. And that overall budget, as you can see there, as amended, looking at column 3 down at the bottom, the overall budget is $562,903. And if you look all the way to the right, next, almost where that 98% is, in that same line at the bottom, looks like we have $13,753 left, so to speak, for the month of June. However, that doesn't take into account that we have a third quarter budget amendment, which is for $66,490. Because we had to put out money for the presidential primary, and we just get that back from the city. The city actually gets that back too. So I filed in a previous report, I think, I filed about, what was it, $70,000 worth of expenses with the state, because that's what we spent in the presidential primary. And they came back, I think I took a note here, maybe not on this one, about $66,000 maybe it was $64,000 of payment back. So they reimbursed us about $64,000. Not quite what we asked for, but pretty close to what we spent overall. So I just say that to say that by the time this budget all settles out at the end of the year, we won't actually need, I think, to have a Q4 budget amendment. I think we'll be okay.
And you're suggesting that the next to last column, the budget line, budget year-to-date transactions, will be increased by the money,
Correct.
the amendment has brought in.
Yes.
And it will be more consistent with the expenditures.
Yeah, so, right, exactly, because we've already spent the money, because we have to spend it to hold the election. And the city essentially allocates the money. This actually should have been done, I don't know, all of it last month, but they've been doing different things in the city council, and this hasn't risen to the level of priority. But they did a first reading, which I will talk about a little later already, and they'll be doing a second reading, and unless they do something unusual, this will flow through with the rest of the Q3 budget.
So is this the time to bring up the ballot scanners and that?
So, yeah, when I submitted my Q3 budget amendments, so the way this worked in our favor is that I talking to Donna in finance early on, she was feeling like, well, we're gonna put the Q3 budget amendment in, and then you'll have to submit a separate budget request for the scanners. But then when they delayed, she said, you know what, roll the whole thing into the Q3 budget amendment and just send it through that. So both of those are in our Q3 budget amendment request.
And that survived the first reading.
That survived the first reading.
Second reading.
We have a second meeting on the 25th.
And so there's a really good shot that we may be able to get a complete set of new ballot standards.
Yeah, so my only concern is that if for any reason, heaven forbid, that the council delays the next reading, because we're out of time. I have to submit this, I have a PO queued up. I worked with Stephanie to get that done. But unless we get that into the vendor by the 30th, they're going to up the price on this, because that's what their suppliers do.
With discount.
Yeah, so we're trying to save about $20,000 by buying it now. So hopefully that'll go through the 25th, and then we're good to go. If not, I will still ask for the money, but then we'll have to figure out how we, come up with additional, not to ask for more, right? So that may be a Q4 budget. But the reason I say all that is because we should come out of this fiscal year, assuming this goes through, within the budget.
Balance. Yeah. Okay, any questions from the board?
Yes.
You said those two things will be in the Q3 budget amendment.
Yes.
What were the two things, the new scanners and the
The two
refund for
ones at the bottom of the page
Oh,
there.
okay, so the refund.
Yeah, so, well, so the way it works is,
Yeah, that's what I meant.
but, so they don't, just because we get a reimbursement, the city doesn't give us that money. They make us ask for it as a budget amendment, and then it's funny money, it doesn't flow directly into us. It's just-
We got it.
Yeah.
As long as we come out even.
Yeah. So I guess I'm saying, looks like we're gonna come out even barring any unexpected things for this fiscal year. And I've submitted my 2025 fiscal year budget back earlier in the year, and so far, that seems like there's no problems with that too. Okay, no more questions. Jump on into a couple other things. Absentee ballot statistics for June dual primary to date. So I just grabbed a few more from the post office this afternoon, and that brings us up to date. I am about, what did I say? I think I did the numbers, 45% probably of what was sent out. We were about 2,400, just under that going out. And we are now at about 1,100 or something coming back. And by the way, I'm counting those numbers. Remember, I'm looking at what's in the Dropbox, what's returned by mail, and then I have about 100 or so that were just undelivered on the left-hand side. So those obviously are not going to get counted, right? But these will get counted, right?
So these are the absentee ballots that were sent out.
Correct. And this is what's been returned so far. Just gives you an idea of what
We're running out of time frame.
Yes, and so I actually did 2 interviews this week. Both of those interviews, I highlighted to the fact that if you have an absentee ballot in your hand, you should probably bring it to the Dropbox. But you have to get it in, obviously it has to be postmarked by the election day, and it has to be in our hands by Friday. So Friday after the election. Oh, I did what? I forgot. Yeah, I'm sorry. I should have put that in here. You have a nice spreadsheet. I didn't put it in here. Nancy has been handling our cures. And I think, remind me of the numbers, just a high level numbers. You were at the 90s, I think it was like on that level, right?
90 something more cures.
Yeah, so cures obviously are when someone sends a ballot back, their oath envelope is not filled out correctly. And so we need to go and to get that correct. So the most convenient way to do that, which the Department of Elections allows us to do, is to send them a affidavit form. The affidavit form essentially has just the same information on it. So it's envelope. They fill that in. I mean, Nancy's been getting faxes left and right and emails left and right from people who are filling it out, scanning it back in, and getting it back to us, which is what we encourage them to do. And she's been getting them by mail too. So I think you were around 90 that we sent out and we got back.
Roughly about 2025.
Okay, so they'll get back as many as and we still have a little bit of time, but they will need to cure those also by that same deadline. So.
If they were not cured by that method and they show up at the polls.
Well, they have an absentee ballot out, right? So in Varus, their mark is having an absentee ballot in flight. When it comes back, we mark it as unmarked, right? It's marked as unmarked in Varus. So we know that they have been sent a ballot, they've sent a ballot back, but we're unable to count it because it's defective.
Would they be able to give a provisional ballot on election day?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't see any reason why not.
Yes,
Yeah,
if it shows that they have an absentee ballot issued to them, but it has not come back counted, we do a provisional ballot so that in Canvas, we check to see, did they vote an absentee ballot at some point? If the answer is no, then we can do the provisional ballot. If the answer is yes, it got cured or whatever it needed to, then we disallow the provisional ballot. They get to vote one way or the other, but not both.
okay. Any other questions on this? Just as a heads up, we talked about the ballot order last time. That was a ballot order for the absentee. This is essentially the same spreadsheet, but I put down what we actually finished up ordering for election day. And we didn't bump it up too much, just a little bit. Wanted to keep our costs within line, but make sure we didn't run out of any ballots. So you can see on the gray column in each of those, each of the primaries there, you can see what we planned for total for each precinct. And you can see what I did to just bump up a little bit for election day. So, I mean, obviously we have to have ballots per precinct. Now every precinct has its own ballot and some of them have their own ballot style because of the extra race in Ward 4. But this should be, at the end of the day, between 2 to 3 times the expected turnout of what we expect in each of these precincts, the number of ballots that we'll have on hand for the election. Okay, any questions on that? And the turnout probably is going to be, you can see the average here is probably going to be on the order of 25%. Okay. Ongoing projects. Again, I'm sorry I put more on this slide than I was hoping to. Some of these have been on here for a little while, so but need a little bit of updating. Top one line there, we have a security grant that we're still working on via Homeland Security. VDEM is the one kind of approving this. They came back to us just end of last week, asking for some additional pictures and showing us some plans of the office that were very outdated. Anyway, so I'm working with Piper over in Department of Emergency Management here in Lynchburg, and she came over, we got all the information together they wanted, and then she sent that off. And as per, I guess yesterday when I emailed her, she said, yeah, it's all in their hands, now we're just waiting on them to approve. They have to, look, they know that our deadline, which I'll mention lower, is July of 2025 to actually spend the funds. So if they don't get back to us in some reasonable time frame, it's gonna be hard for us to actually execute the grant.
So you said she said it's out of her hands.
Yeah,
So it's
so
at Homeland
it
Security.
is with VDEM, actually with VDEM is the agency it's actually,
Okay.
it's a Homeland Security grant, and VDEM is the agency that's kind of managing the paperwork. So, Virginia Department of Emergency Management. So, anyway, it's back in their hands. They kicked it back to us, back in their hands, and now we're just waiting. But I'm hopeful that they'll come back soon because we have certain work windows we have to hit in order to actually deliver on this one. Okay, segregation of duties document, we'll defer that down until after this election. Relocation of precinct 204. You're familiar with what we've been doing there. We've sent out notices. The one place where William Mass is ready. We had to get a ramp built for the one door entry that's been done. And precinct visit's been done by the chief. So we are queued up to go there as much as we can be before we actually go there. We will have signage at Fairview Christian, which is a previous precinct, so people know. And you'll note, I think you saw the email this week. Gaynell in buildings, grounds, buildings department, she had some work going on and actually took down the sign, right? At Gaynell
The street
Avenue.
sign.
Yeah, took down the street sign, and so I reached out to Ray Patrick, and he asked her, can you do something about this? And she said, yeah, we'll figure something out. So I haven't seen what they're gonna figure out yet. My expectation is we will also put a sandwich board sign or something that we would put here, just to show the people on camera. So that people, I know you have signage going down the precinct, but we should put something out there in addition to whatever the city manages to do for that precinct. Okay, page program restart, that's waiting until September or at least until August when we're getting school back in session. Backup precinct review and approval, as you may know, I sent you guys all a list of potential backup precincts based on my research with the AEP. And at some point we need to go through a deeper dive of that. I'm not expecting to do that for this election, but it's in your hands to take a look at it, think about it. Probably an exercise that would be good for you to do if you're willing before we get into the deep dive is actually do a little drive by some of those side listed there, just take a look at the places and see. I didn't do, my review was really only from the AEP's perspective. That is, if the primary precinct, and when we had tentatively had or previously had on the backup precinct was on the same circuit, same power circuit, then I proposed in that document an alternative for you guys to look at and consider. And we may end up going with the backup precinct we have now, but just because it's on a different circuit may not be the only factor, but I figured we should at least look at that and monitor that. Ongoing upgrade of ballot scanning equipment, you just heard my comments about what happens with the budget, should the city approve that. And if not, I think we could still do it, but we have to maybe put a budget amendment into the fourth quarter, or I don't know, we have to figure out what the next step is. But all things being equal, we're hopeful that budget will go through. And I will put in the PO before the end of June. Signage upgrade, add signs and improve signage for precincts. So I have another slide later on, which will show you what exactly we purchased. And you, I think, have all taken a look at your precincts on the map, mark what you want. So that information Julie is passing to the technicians in the city, and they will put your signs where you would like them to be. I think they were a little surprised at how tall the feather signs were. You've seen those, they're kind of tall. I think they're worried about them blowing over, which is probably a fair concern. And I told them, tie them down wherever you can. Sand, water, or a stake in the ground. So they'll choose how they want to manage that. We did get the sign order for in front of the registrar's office. I know it's something that Jeff was interested in. So that did come through. It's sitting with Howard in the sign department. He told me, he said, "Oh, I'm gonna get out there today and do it." I didn't see him do it today, but I imagine he'll be out there to swap the signs out. So you can come by and take a look at the new signs, and hopefully they're more accommodating to all types of customers of the voter registrar office. MOU with city. So this is something that the board and I have worked on with the city attorney to get a memorandum of understanding with the city. This is a little bit unique. I couldn't find any other registrar's office in the state, at least not one that would admit it, that had an MOU with their city. So I found that was, anyway, we felt we needed to do this in order to get to the polling place, which is the next item on there, the polling place agreement. As you know, this has been driven by concerns about a lack of insurance that we have and no formal relationship with our polling places that has been on paper. So we wanted to formalize that, particularly with the private owners of polling places. And so we've gone ahead and got that out. I've got 10 of the 11 privately owned polling places have a completed agreement, and one is under review. And that's, I think that's Compassion Church. But anyway, he said, well, some things here I'd like to maybe change. So I said, well, send me back what you think you want to change, and we'll take it under advisement with the city attorney. But that is essentially done. The polling places now have a certificate of insurance with them as a named insured, providing coverage for them on election times, a little before the election, a little after the election, so that even if something happens while equipment's being dropped off or brought back, that they still have coverage for those activities.
Particularly congratulate you on having all those signs.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's a little bit of chasing around. And I still have one to go, but we're almost there. And we have an agreement with LCS for the schools in a parallel way. I think that agreement is done. It's just for whatever reason, they haven't signed on their end yet. So I don't know if they're waiting on Matt or somebody to kind of give them the go ahead. Maybe, I think Matt sent over to Tom Martin, the director of
I think it's in the school's hands.
yeah, I think it's in the school's hands. I think he and they have to sign it. We're all ready to go as soon as they are. So, and that would also be, I don't know if I mentioned it here, but that would also be have insurance certificates of insurance for those individual schools for those places. James Hall went ahead and issued all those certificates for me out of our risk management department. Public renewal replacement. So this is something we'll talk about a little bit later. As I've shared with you, we have a bit of a interesting situation with our present poll book. And we'll need to discuss what we think our best course of action is going forward. I was able to talk to Mike Brown, who is the owner of the Demtech, which looks like it's now no longer going to be Demtech. And got a little bit of information from him, but I'll take, as we get into this project more, I'll take your feedback and what other questions you want to ask. And drill down.
It's my understanding that August will be the significant time frame for information on that topic.
Yeah, so when we go to VRAF, I expect that we will have a chance to look at other vendors. And, you know, moving from one vendor to another is not a small thing, right? It's all the retraining that has to happen and all the changes that have to happen. So it's not a decision to jump to lightly. But we should make an informed decision. And I have some beginnings of that information, which I'll share in a few minutes. Precinct 301 relocation, we've been discussing possibly relocating precinct 301. It's presently public library is presently hosting. That is a polling place, but of course the public library is no longer in Ward 3, so precinct 301 probably is more appropriate to be moved into the 3rd ward. And we've had 2 polling places that have been looked at. I think, David, you've had a chance to look at both of them. We may have some commentary on that when we get into that slide. Grant for paper poll book, so replacement and BOD printers. There it has jumped up on the radar as of the beginning of June. I heard rumors about it at the end of May, but in June it kind of came to fruition. There is some money available from ELEC to help people who are on paper poll books to purchase electronic poll books. And they also are willing to help localities that don't have ballot on demand to actually purchase ballot on demand. So it's a grant. You always hate to miss the opportunity to put a grant in. However, we have to get this grant in by, I think, the 15th, which I'll have on the
14th of July.
14th. So we'll detail that in just a moment. And also, we need to update the voting system security plan. It's an annual review. And the deadline for that is September 6th. Take that up. Probably closed session to talk about that. I sent you a copy of last year's plan, so we can start from there. Okay, any question on that? All right, so doing a little bit of a deeper dive, the 2 potential sites of 301 location were West Lynchburg Baptist Church, Level 2 Community Church. I think both sites have adequate facilities to service polling places, but I think this is where maybe you have Chairman Moore might have a thought about what he wants to do here. Anyway, you had a chance to look at both of them.
I mean, there are attributes of both. We seem to like the location of West Lynchburg Baptist better.
Okay.
But again, that's something for a future meeting for us.
Yeah. Yeah, so I had a request from a city council member about this change. He hasn't repeated that request. I spoke to him the other day, and he didn't seem to have any urgency. So I don't think, this is something that maybe we should consider for November or.
I think we would, if we decide to propose a change at our September meeting is when we should start the process.
Okay.
But it's not going to take effect by November.
Right, yeah, if we start in September, then we want to push it back. And I didn't solicit the process here for people's, advisement. That's typically what it takes in order to do that. So if we're going to hold off until after November, then yeah, I think it's a September meeting or something.
I did speak, well, he spoke with me. He mentioned this change, and when I said I did not think it would take place before November, he seemed slightly surprised, but did not have any objection to it.
Okay. All right, so let me fill you in a little bit on the Demtech question. This is our poll book vendor. Demtech was sold to Civics a couple of years ago, and Civics was having essentially the whole company of Demtech as a division underneath their umbrella. Turns out that Mike Brown, who was the owner of Demtech, retained the rights to his software, which he provided as part of the deal. But Civics made a decision after the presidential primary this year to decommission that whole division. So they just fired him. And so it was a bit of a jolt for people. And then people began to ask about what's going to happen in the future. And so those questions were kind of open. I did speak to Mike Brown. He says he's planning to reboot under another legal entity called Calvacare. He's working with Elect to get authorization to essentially be accredited to sell, the software he's already created, the software that we have for elections in Virginia. And if he gets that approval, his plan is to restart the company under the Calvacare brand as of July 1. So what does this mean for us? Well, first of all, I don't know if I mentioned it here, just to see. Civics, Civics is offering support through November general election. So we have to make a decision about what we're going to do, but from the perspective of November, they're saying that we're covered through November. It turns out that the Demtech software is software we've purchased. We purchased both the software and the hardware, and the license that's been embedded in that extends through 2027. So we don't have to worry about the software stopping working until 2027. But Mike Brown is offering contracts for support only. So he said, well, you own the software. You don't have to pay anything more for it. You bought it. You bought the full book laptops. So we're not paying license fees or anything else like we do for ballot scanners. Ballot scanners, we actually pay an annual fee, and they give us upgrades and updates, and they program for the election. So we kind of pay them ongoing maintenance costs. This would be an ongoing cost only for support. So Mike Brown is offering support as per their previous arrangement with customers under the new brand Calvacare once approved by the Department of Elections. So I think we need to keep our ear to the ground on this. I just want to let you know what I know up until now. And like I said, if you have thoughts around questions we need to do, on a business due diligence, basis, I would be fine to entertain those and carry that forward.
So the Mike Brown support would happen after the civics stops.
Yeah, so
after
he's-
the November
Yeah,
election.
so he's trying to retain customers. So he said, well, we can start supporting you right away. But, I'm a little cautious about that because he's,
Not approved yet.
yeah, exactly. So I wanted to hear what he had to say. But I think we should track their progress before we make any final.
Is there any idea when the elect would make a decision?
Well, he seems to think he can get it by July 1, which is coming up. I'm not sure.
It'd be nice to know what an alternative vendor would be and how different that environment would be in terms of cost and
Yeah.
in terms of ability to support our existing equipment.
Yep, so it wouldn't support the existing equipment. That's the dirty little secret, right? With this, is when you get a full software vendor, you have to buy their hardware platform.
So we would have to buy new hardware if we change software.
Yeah, and by the way, this also rolls down to another slide here, which is the ballot on demand. Ballot on demand printer is associated with one whole book software hardware,
Which is another yet company.
which, well, it would be the same company. So for example, let me just see if I can skip down to that. I'll skip down to here and I'll jump back if you want. So this is with the grant. So this is the grant, just to show you that application. I would need to fill in down here how much we would be applying for. And Julie just gave me some numbers just before the meeting. It's like pretty coming back. Where were they? Here we go. So we would need to get, if we did this, so this would be a Demtech specific printer, right? And the Demtech specific printer for ballot on demand would be $800 per printer to purchase. And there'd be $1,000 setup fee. I'm assuming that's maybe across the number of printers that we purchase, but I'll have to drill down on that question.
Would you say $1,000 setup?
Yeah, $1,000 setup, and then $1,000 annual, and I'm assuming it's a support fee like they do for their other software.
Is that per machine or for the whole package?
Well, per machine is the $800 per machine. So if you did 18, let's just say, right, if you just did 18 across, I'm not saying we want to do that, but just multiplying that number out just for us to look at, that would be about $14,400.
And that's to set up each precinct, and then there's $1,000 total,
I
$1,000
think-
per
I
precinct.
believe $1,000 total, but I would have to double check on that. Like I said,
Wait, $1,000 setup for all of them, or $1,000 annual support for all?
so there is $1,000 annual support, and $1,000 setup. I didn't get from Julie, I guess Mike didn't tell her the specifics of if that's for, per printer. I can't imagine the printer costs $800 and the setup and the annual costs $1,000 per printer. I'd be very surprised. But anyway, I throw those numbers out just to kind of give you a ballpark. For what it's worth, if this vendor is charging that amount, chances are good other vendors are going to be similar in pricing. Because, they all look at each other, make sure that they can compete with each other. So this is the one that, like Doc mentioned, needed to be submitted by July 14th. So in a way, this may drive our decision if we want to apply for this grant. Might just drive some of our thoughts around the software.
Little bullet point, any new poll book vendor would mean complete hardware and software replacement, but that's only on the poll books, not on the scanners or anything else.
Yes, correct. That's with the poll. So, I mean, they're selling software on their hardware. Like, for example, I think, but knowing, they come out, they say you, I think it's a tablet or whatever, that's the tablet that they certified their software on. I mean, all this happens because Alexa says you have to certify your whole package to be, compliant. So they pick some hardware and they put their stuff on there and they get certified in that, and that's their offer. Okay, so that's just,
Moving on.
yeah, all right. So just to backtrack it slightly, Registrar's Office has completed an MOU. The main purpose is to formalize a relationship between the city and Electoral Board and Registrar to provide a vehicle providing private polling places to be named and shared. Anything else that we need to share on that topic? I think we understand that's mostly why we did the MOU.
Just remember, we need to re-sign them January 1. We have to have new polling place agreements each year.
Is it January 1 or July 1?
I think it was.
Before I answer that question, you have in your packet a copy of one, right? And I thought we had put in there that they roll over. I didn't remember that we didn't roll over. I think we have to tell Matt
Maybe
every
the
year.
certificate of insurance
Yeah,
liability.
I think we're supposed to go back to the city risk management and tell them the changes, or tell them, they need to know elections.
We notify each
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's a certificate of liability we have to renew
Yeah.
annually. Polling place agreement, without looking, I think, is ongoing unless one party or the other decides to terminate it. I think that's how that says.
Yeah, so it's the certificate of liability that drives that annual. And of course, he's issuing it for, whatever elections are in the year. So he puts it on the dates for the elections. That's how he. Okay, moving down, our voting system ballot scanner upgrade project. We've talked about this a little bit, but just in terms of detail, the request to city council is $142,200 for the money. We are waiting on the reading on June 25th, reading and vote on June 25th. If that all goes through, I will put the purchase order into the vendor before July 1 for 22 scanners. We will get delivery of those August or maybe September. Latest will be when we're doing holiday testing for November. And then we could roll them out in plan would be to roll them out for the November elections. We have not planned on replacing the OBI units, that's the ADA ballot marking devices. These are aging, but as you know, they don't get much use, so we haven't really made a plan to do something different with that right yet. The OBI units will ultimately be decommissioned, and I'll have to have a secure destruction of those. And I'm talking to the vendor about what we might do on that. But we don't have to decommission them right away. It's really our option. They're still, we still have them. We'll put them in storage until that decommissioning happens. We'll have them available if we need them. Signage update. Okay, this is what the signs end up costing. The parking signs outside the registrar's office, election office parking, and then that was the cost there, probably pretty reasonable in all of this. We got feather vote signs, vote here signs. We got vote with arrow signs from 2 different vendors, vote here and vote with arrow. And then we got voter parking signs. And the city technicians have all of these now, and they are preparing to put them out for the next election. They're not excited about putting out more signs, but we told them,
We are.
yeah, we told them this is what we have to do. Security grant update, so I mentioned this before, essentially, my biggest concern is that we hit the work windows, which is really going to be first week of July through September 19th, because that's when we have our early voting start for this year for the November election. I have little hope that we're going to get it back that quick at this point. So that probably means after the November election, we have a window, assuming we have a June primary of November 15th through May 1st. So we have to get the funds used by July 1st. So I'm not sure if we have a June primary, how we would do that without hitting that work window after November through May 1st. I asked Piper about an extension of the deadline because they didn't come back to us for a year. But anyway, not clear on that. Registrar and staff certification programs. This was something that my staff asked me to just talk to you about. Here are some options for staff certification. I think the previous administration had some people certified in Sarah. That's actually kind of the longest certification. Takes a little more time because it's at various locations. The registered election official working up to the middle there is done through the National Election Center. However, that was done in association with VRAB, and VRAB kind of stepped away from that, and now they're possibly stepping back, so we'll have to see what happens if that becomes an option. I don't know what the cost on that would be. And then, of course, the other one that a lot of registrars have also done is the Certificate of Election Administration. That's offered through the University of Minnesota, and that's an online course. It's 12 credits, and you can see the cost per credit plus fees there. Total cost to get that certification is about $12,000. So the reason I mention all of this is just for you to consider sponsoring, if you will, myself or others in this. And like I say, there's precedent for people in the office here to have certification. Okay, any questions? Announcements, recommendations. Just a reminder to everyone that Precinct 204 is moving from Fairview Christian to Bass Elementary for this election coming up on June 18th and all following elections. We do have a Juneteenth holiday on June 19th, so the office will be closed. Registrar's office will be closed for regular business, but depending on the board's decision about canvass, you can decide whether we're starting canvass then or afterwards, as elect has said we may start on the 20th. We'll be closed for Independence Day, July 4th. And I just want to let everybody know CAP pre-processing is happening now. We started on the 7th in advance of our regulatory deadline of Tuesday prior to the election. And that's ongoing, and we have that happening. All absentee ballots need to be postmarked by election day, arrive at the registrar's office by Friday, June 21st at noon. Absentee drop box we have available at every precinct on election day and also at the registrar's office. We have a couple of days left of early voting, so if you haven't voted yet, especially if you're an election officer, get down to the office and get that.
Okay. And that's the registrar's report. Shall we move on to old business? And the first item is the relocation of precinct 301, possibly in West Lynchburg Baptist Church. I would suggest we defer that to a meeting and prepare that as an agenda item for that.
I move we table that item until our next meeting, our July 25th meeting.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No one opposed. Okay, moving on to the ratification of the memorandum of understanding with the city and the polling place agreement. We have in our packet of information the final agreement, which is very much substantially what was available at the last meeting. We tweaked it a little bit, and pursuant to what the board decided last week, I went ahead and signed it. I asked that there be a motion to, what do we call it?
Ratify.
Excuse me?
Ratify.
Ratify the MOU. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
I'd like to, is this the one that we've actually signed? Because here on point 6, movable chairs and tables are to be provided. Polling place, my bad. Memorandum of understanding, I have no problem.
Yes.
You need a motion to approve?
Yes.
I make that motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No one opposed, the motion passes. Okay, and then we have in front of us the sample polling place agreement, which was negotiated with the city as well. It's going to be a 3-part, 3-signature agreement between the 4 signatures, the registrar's office, the electoral board chairman, the city, and the polling place representative. And they change from polling place to polling place, depending on what we negotiate. But what you have in front of you is what we are using as the model. So is there any motion to ratify that model as a model, knowing that it will in fact change somewhat?
But before I make a motion, because I'm in favor of it, paragraph 6, movable chairs and tables are to be provided by the owner for use and shall be set up at least 24 hours in advance of an election by the owner. I had thought that we had changed that, and I thought Matt Friedman had changed that, and shall be available for setup at least 24 hours in advance, because if you're using a church, that means they have to have it set up by 5 a.m. on Monday morning after having had Sunday services, and they may use it on Monday, so I thought that had changed to instead of saying shall be set up, it shall be available for setup. So I just don't want that to get lost in the,
And do you remember what we did on that?
This is the version that I think was the last thing I saw from Matt. But if there was an update to that, I can check again just to make sure it wasn't.
I don't remember if there was an update or not. I don't have my computer down.
Yes.
To see.
I'd have to look at my computer too. I do remember that just because a lot of the chiefs will go over on Monday and set up their space, which
Well,
is contrary to what this says.
with the caveat that this is not the agreement that necessarily will be the one signed with the polling place, but it's a prototype for it.
I can make a motion that we accept this as a prototype with concerns noted.
Is there a second?
So, wait, are we accepting, or are we ratifying?
We are ratifying this as a prototype.
That works. That works.
All in favor?
I,
All opposed? It's passed. Let's move on to new business. We have new election officers being appointed.
Yes.
Go into that.
You have the list, we have 17 people that we can appoint, their candidates for appointment. 5 of them already have attended training and have been placed in precincts and are anxious to work next Tuesday. 3 of them,
you can add number 4, Jamie Costa. She came yesterday and I took care of her training.
Costa.
Costa.
Let's see, 3 of them are people who just weren't able to work in November, but will be available this coming November. So they didn't automatically have their appointments extended. So I added them to this list. And also the party affiliations have been confirmed by party chairs. And I sent the party chairs the list of where everybody will be located on election day, along with party affiliations.
Any discussion of these 17 election officers? Do I?
I will be motion, appoint these 17 candidates.
I second.
Is this for a 1-year term?
Well, not even 1 year, everybody's does.
That clarifies my question.
Yes, okay, should I make my motion? more
Yes.
specific?
Yes.
Okay, I make a motion to appoint these 17 candidates to a term that will expire on February 28th next year.
Is there a second? I second.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye. No one opposed, the motion is passed. We have this item postponing the start of the post-election canvass to June 20th because of the Juneteenth holiday. Do I hear a motion to postpone that, or should we have discussion?
I thought we had talked about doing it before, and I think the comment was made that elect had not given us the okay to move it from the day after. Do we have an okay to move it from the day
Yeah,
after?
I sent you guys that, the
Yes.
advisory. And I actually just sent over to Todd as well.
Okay, so long as elect is not going to hold us to the 19th, then I'm more than happy to go to the 20th.
Now, one note is that we still have to complete everything on the same timeline, so we're still required to finish it at least by Monday.
Right.
I would be more nervous about that if I thought we were going to get a lot of SDRs. But seeing as Liberty, who generally produces most SDRs, is away for the summer, I think we're going to be a matter of dozens of SDR, not hundreds. So,
And we couldn't start on the SDRs until Monday anyway.
well, you couldn't start, but we have to start on them.
Yeah, they-
Have them in by
Okay,
Friday
yeah,
afternoon.
yeah,
So,
understood.
My concern was 19th would be a burden to staff if we do not honor the holiday. And can we do it starting the 20th? You're telling us we can.
Like I said, I think the biggest thing in my mind is the SDRs. That seems to take the most energy. We have to get them in a certain timeframe. It has to have kind of simultaneously some of the things. So I think we'll have less SDRs in this election. That should give us the flexibility to start.
So do we have a specific start time on the 20th?
I think we published so far. We'll update this the 10 o'clock on the 19th. So we will update everything to say whatever you choose, 10 o'clock, whatever you choose on the 20th.
Do I hear a motion to move the start of hearings to June 30th?
Do you hear that motion?
Second, make a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. Okay, our next item is the summer election officer training. Who's reporting on this?
Oh, I just wanted to start a conversation about beginning to have training through the summer of different topics. Maybe some of our election officers who are here have like topics we could cover, but just so we don't end up right before an election being swamped with new people to train, and because, yeah.
How well stocked are we for election officers for November?
We don't know.
We don't.
We don't know who will show up.
Yeah, so to answer the question more specifically, Betty has done the due diligence to actually get a list of a few people that we know are probably not going to be available. But the problem we always have is that we could assume people are available, but until someone actually calls them up and, checks on them, we don't know for sure. Right? So I think we have a good list, but whether or not they'll all show up.
We need to add lots more.
I think what you're saying, Betty, by looking to think about summer election officer training is contacting people to see if they're going to be available.
Yes, or like the 17 people here, only 5 of them have come to training, and so we could get them trained during the summer rather than hiring them into a big class.
And
And I hope we'll have at the.
and I think another option, I'm sorry, I kept hearing period. Are we there yet?
Yes.
Period, thank you, I'm sorry. Another aspect of looking at the summer training, I don't know, maybe Roz and Peter could answer this, but I thought going over the SDR forms made a lot of sense, and I think a lot of the chiefs appreciated doing that. So some of this summer training, we talked about it before, is maybe dividing up some of the training into components and handling particular areas instead of trying to cram it all into 2 hours the week before the election, because I think it sits a little better if they have time to ruminate on it, and then when we come back and hit it, oh yeah, I remember that training from this summer. So I think what we're looking at here is not only full-blown election officer training or even chiefs training, but recurring training and improvement in levels of understanding training. So that's what I would look at, looking at summer election officer training.
I think it's a little, my own feeling is it might be a little high in the sky that people will know in August, July, August, whether they'll be doing election officer things in November. But it's not bad to do it. It's just, it puts burden on the staff to help organize it.
Look, well, we like to have people trained, so that's better than not. So if it takes a little bit of extra effort on our part, we will happily cooperate with that.
And since the hands-on training requires registrar office staff, the more we can spread that out, so it's not all crammed during early voting, and oh yeah, we got to do this too for 47 people. The training lasts for the entire appointment. So, and it's, my understanding is that we are trying to open the discussion on what is the best way to do this, with the idea that we should take more opportunities than just the last month or week or whatever run up to the election to try and do our training. And I think it is a good topic that we need to discuss. We're not going to make any decisions tonight, in my thought process, but I do think we need to be seriously considering the timeframes.
What are we trying to tee up here? A motion by next meeting that we decide something, or what is the decision we're asking to make here?
No,
I just was gonna start the conversation. And also, we have been asked, remember, we were asked by chiefs if we could give special sessions on certain topics, or certain form, or just on the forms they have to fill out, or just on the envelope they have to fill out at the end of the night. And so we were asked to do that in the summer.
And we tried to do all the forms in one session, and it was too much. You know? So that's what we're looking at, is what's the best way to get the chiefs and assistants particularly comfortable with all of their responsibilities. It's not going to work in one night. So I think what we're hearing is, how do we want to break this down, and do we want to make it required? There's a lot of parameters to this, and we just don't know them, I think it'd be good to discuss.
I'd like to see a plan of some form advanced by next meeting that would express what we're doing ourselves.
Well,
And, you know, the summer is upon us. If we're having summer training.
doesn't mean we'd have to have it this summer. At least we would do it.
Yeah. But if we've got a big election coming up in November,
Right.
and it's going to be very useful to have trained people.
Can so I think Roz and I are relatively new chiefs, but I think if you want to do chiefs training, I think it would be good to get talk to some of the chiefs people who are the chiefs who for a while and have got the shutdown system and got everything down pat, and see how they manage that in their precinct, and let them get trained. Pick one or two of them, and have them do the training, because they're the ones who actually do it.
See that as a good idea. So,
Nancy?
Back to the original question, of what you, David, what you'd asked about, how many election workers that we have for November. I would make a suggestion of contacting those parties and seeing who they can actually get.
I do that regularly. That's actually, we have to do it. We have to do it, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
but being more persistent about it, because that way, you know, it's not all on your shoulders.
well, I hope that when I send the assignment sheet this week of where everybody is, that they look and say, look, I only have one person from my party in that precinct. And I have had one party chair come back and say, hey, a bunch of these ends belong to my party. And I said, you asked them to switch. And so they did. And then they got back to me and got them to switch. So yeah, they sure. I should badger them, you said, I should spam them once a month.
So I think there should be that sort of effort.
There is.
Okay, any further discussion of this one?
well, I always like action points, and I think you asked for an action point. And so I think our action point for our July meeting is that we develop some kind of a rubric for our summer election officer training. I'm just not sure who we want to assign that to.
Why do you think summer training is gonna be any different than the training we already been doing?
Because there are some things that need to be divided out so that it's not all the same training.
Well, you're thinking of chief training? Or
Thinking
like-
of chief training,
Yeah, Peter was just suggesting a way of doing this. It's a little different than we've done before.
Right, well, I would hope that something will happen before our next meeting. That's like 6 weeks away. I know we have them.
okay, so what is our action point? It would be nice if we had an action point.
Well,
What are we going to do coming from this? Are we going to develop by the 1st of July or July 4th or whatever, a plan for how to do summer training? Just what are we going to do and how are we going to work with it?
I frankly think it might be good to go a step further and set up a training, commit ourselves to setting up a training in August for election election chiefs, deputies, and potential election chiefs, people who might be interested and using this.
And the outcome of the training, what do we want people to be able to do at the end of the training? And I'm not being facetious, I'm seriously trying to.
To be comfortable with the process of actually running the election on the election day. To express those ideas.
Okay, so this is something that we would want senior chiefs, if you want, veteran chiefs, to be able to come in and say, this is what I did and this is how I did it.
But it may be that we want some of our veteran election officers who we are hoping
Oh, yeah.
to do it as well.
Yeah, well, I was speaking strictly of who would be the training, so far as the attendees are concerned, we can make that as wide as we
The
want.
experienced people would be
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah. I like that idea.
Does that make sense, Ken?
Sure. I think, to kind of put legs to it, we have to figure out what a schedule will look like and kind of talk through a little bit of a curriculum. I mean, we've done some of these trainings in the past, and we have kind of a, hands-on training particularly, has a kind of set curriculum because you talk about the different, pieces of equipment and the process that go on in managing that.
Is this something people would receive a stipend for?
That's another question that we have to answer. Is it voluntary or is it required?
Take a look at you since this is your idea.
I'm not paying them personally, that's what you're asking. Didn't we have a vote to pay people for training?
Oh, yeah,
Right.
yes, yes.
Required.
Required
Yeah.
training, yeah. It's a part of the ticket.
That's what,
Right,
that's the question is this voluntary additional tutoring or is this required training? So,
Well, we have not addressed that.
which of the several that we've discussed?
Well, I think the issue of whether we make it a required process is what we have to discuss. I'm not sure we should make it a required training for the summer.
Especially since you have people that take vacations.
Right.
3 months out of the year, you're gonna have a lot of people on vacation.
But I think it would be, what was the suggestion for doing this? The reason for doing this was to enhance our skills.
True.
So,
Which is why I'm thinking this might be volunteer, come in for an upgrade and then you'll be that much better prepared when it comes to the required training for which we pay.
any comments from,
About required training over the summer, that's a question you're asking for comment on?
Then we decided it wouldn't be required.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, so I think it's better not to require it in the summer. I also think you may get a lower attendance. And, if it's not required, and also if people just done some training, you might want to target some people that, have just been appointed or maybe have been out of the loop for a little bit and we're getting back in. We would focus them on them, see if they are willing to commit for that.
I think it would be a good opportunity to reach out to those people.
Yeah. And I know when we were talking about spreading out the chiefs training, we talked about doing it 4 times during the year. Again, I'm not sure that summer is the best time to try and do it. We should maybe do it at some point when kids are back in school so that people are generally not gone or whatever it is, their summer activities, all of those types of things. And still have some volunteer sessions, just not necessarily the June, July, August window. But I would just suggest that we throw some ideas out and try and see what sticks to the wall.
You have a thought?
Nancy?
I would suggest having training in September. Only reason is because you just mentioned the kids going back to school, their parents going to be out of town, there's doing sports. So you're probably not gonna get a lot of attendance. So,
Yeah. Not in the summer.
yeah, I definitely would probably say like, start it in September.
So why don't we task somebody on staff to work with members of the board here to come up with a plan for September?
I volunteered June.
Yeah, that's fine. We don't have to, we don't have to specify, but you, happy to take it within the
Person
system.
who's not in the-
And we'll figure out,
Dan, let us know who loses the lottery.
yeah, we'll draw straws and.
Do we need a motion to that?
I don't know that we need a motion. I think we have discussed the fact that we're going to be having discussions about the best way to enhance training of both our chiefs and assistants and of our election officers.
Madam Secretary, would you put on the agenda for the next meeting as well? Any other new business? Any public comments?
All right, I just like to say, what my issue is be confident in what I need to do after 7. So I, for being a chief and it's just feeling like I know what I've got to do and how it's got to be done. So that's, once you get that down, then the rest of it's okay. For me.
So, any other comments?
Yes, I have two questions. One is on authorized representatives for the primary canvass.
Yes.
Question is, although for primaries, parties are not entitled to have representatives, but the question is, can there be representatives of the parties if the board agrees to that?
So I actually just researched this question recently, and when I went out to my liaison Department of Elections, they directed me to the AR's do's and don'ts and looking through there. It's a little convoluted, but my reading of it is that you are entitled as a party even during the primary to have a representative. That's how.
Well, at least they're allowed.
Yeah, that's how it says, it's funny because it says one, representative for a candidate, but then it kind of the end of the sentence, it says something about parties. It's like, it's not clear if we're talking about a primary or a general election, because they just don't say that in the sentence, but the liaison I spoke to said they're entitled to be a part of primary.
Okay, so in any case,
So the canvas would be part of that.
we can go there with a letter from the party chair.
Yeah.
We don't need to get one from it.
I don't even think you don't even have to have a letter, but sure, it'd be good to have a letter, I think, just as.
No, we require that authorized representatives, in order to exercise the function of authorized representatives, have a letter. But I don't think anybody on the board would be opposed to a duly certified authorized representative coming and doing what ARs do. So, yes, you're welcome.
Yeah, and that includes the part that's on provisionals.
Yeah, I think that's the part you care about, right?
Okay.
That's a closed meeting, right?
That's closed.
It's a closed meeting.
Yeah.
But
I think that one representative from each party is allowed at the provisional segment. We'll check on that to make sure unless Carol says.
Yeah, well, we certainly wouldn't have more than one.
Yeah.
Yeah. My other question is the LNA for the poll book still on for Sunday?
yes, it is. We'll probably, I have to rebuild the poll book, so I will probably do that. I don't know, 8 a.m. and probably by 9 or 10, we'll actually start rolling into getting everything. I got the poll books set up, and we have to just kind of work our way through all the precincts. So probably by 9, I would say, it's a long day, you're welcome to come to the stage as long as you want or not. But anyway,
Bring a sandwich.
we won't start, we won't start before 9.
Any other comments?
Thank you.
This is my day for going off on the weeds. Going back to the question earlier about cured absentee ballots and whether or not how they voted if they go to the polls.
the what ifs says that if it has been marked and put in Veris as issued or unmarked, the person can vote a regular ballot. So I'm assuming that when something comes in and it's waiting to be cured, there's something that happens in Veris.
It
That
should
says,
show up as unmarked, right? That's how it shows up.
it just shows up as unmarked. So then item number 20 and what ifs will answer your questions about that. I
Okay.
never go without my what ifs.
Okay.
I never answer a question from off the top of my head. That's one thing. I just wanted to make sure that we talked about that. The other thing is the ballot on demand that you all are looking at. This is a change in philosophy on how voting is done within the city. So I'm kind of concerned about that. It needs to be communicated and all those other good things. But so if you move to the system, it's a ballot on demand, you're sitting there with a printer on election day, what happens if that printer goes down?
By the way, that's a great question, and I share that concern. So my discussion of this today was not necessarily an advocacy of that. It's just that that's what's being offered by the Department of Elections.
There's money out there.
Yeah, there's money out there, and I don't want to, not let the board know about that opportunity. If I had my, thoughts, if I would want to project out into that space, I think maybe a ballot demand printer in the office for early voting maybe makes more sense than distributing across the whole, precinct and relying on that as a main sense. I think it's not a bad idea to have a backup for running out of ballots, if you will. So if you had for example, if you had a ballot demand printer in the office and you said, you know what, precinct, 401, there, we ordered, we thought it was gonna be enough, but whoops, this is getting to be close, and we're halfway through election day. And we say, you know what, we're gonna run off another 100 or 200 of 401 ballots. That might be a good backup plan. Help us to save money a little bit on ballots as well as be able to cover the situation.
So follow up from that, if you do it, whichever way you do it, how does the ballot on demand printer, the ballot that actually comes out, interface with the existing voting system?
So this is a learning curve for us because we haven't done ballot on demand, right? But my assumption is that it has to be, we would have to have the proper weight of paper, weight and color of paper. That would have to be within the ballot on demand printer. We'd have to order that and have that ready. And then the ballot on demand printer would have to have whatever alignments it has to have in order to create the ballot correctly. So I don't think it's we're just gonna ballot on demand printer and that's it. I think there is a little complexity to this, a learning curve, and
So it's unlikely by the 14th that all those questions will be answered.
yeah, that was actually one of my thoughts, but I didn't feel like I should not, mention that this is there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
So it will ballot on demand be considered for November? Already? No.
Frankly, my only consideration of ballot on demand is the ballots we use cost 25 cents a piece. And we put 10,000 ballots unused in storage at 25 cents each. That's a lot of waste. So that would be my only consideration of should we really go with ballot on demand, is just because of the waste of paper being more than prepared.
I know years ago, when I say years, maybe 10 years, they did that at one time. I know I voted on a machine, put in what I voted for, and it printed out my ballot, and then put my ballot in the machine.
So
I know
that's done
forward.
Very different ways to do it.
Yeah, I'm just saying, this is not something new.
Years ago in another state, my husband and I were election judges, and we went through the training, not just in support of improvements. I think that's really good for retention and truly understanding what you're doing and feeling very confident on the day of election that you got it. So, by taste.
Okay, any other comments? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Third.
All in favor?
Aye.